As I'm singing this hymn, I'm thinking these words of the Apostle Paul may be the anthem of parenting. So just think about that as you look through that again, to give and to receive, to find love in all things. Every year we turn the corner on spring and we arrive at Mother's Day, a secular holiday founded to promote peace, and yet here it is in the church. Mother's Day was originally created, as you know, possibly as an anti-war rallying cry by Unitarian Julie Ward Howe. She resides in our heritage. And the spirit of Howe lives in what I want to say today, because I think Mother's Day can be more than a day for flowers and pancakes and boxes of chocolates. We have done many things here in church on Mother's Day, including creating a tree full of peace wishes and dedicating a peace pole that stands in the playground. I can't remember if we did that last year or the year before. It all blends together a little bit. And we have always blessed children, and in turn refracted blessings to mothers, well-deserved blessings. But we have rarely pointed to the complications of mothering, which range from raising happy children to choosing not to have them at all. So in honor of the complications of this day, of the complications of mothering, I am declaring this day not Mother's Day, but Mama's Day. Now, I know that sounds a little irreverent, but so be it. With the shift from mothers to mamas, I think we can open up the meaning of the day and find their spiritual food to chew on. So I want to make some observations, and I want to ask you some questions that you can jot down on your order of service for reflection through this week. These questions are not just for mothers, but for all of us in seek of the spiritual life. So an observation and then a question. The first is that we can start recognizing the great variety of mama-ing in the world. We can start by lifting up the fierce spirit of the mama, which protects what she loves with her own life. That spirit that can be squelched in peace-loving communities like ours. But I think sometimes we all have to engage in some kind of fierceness for what is right. Whether that thing is your dignity or someone else's, sometimes the lioness, mama, must roar. And in these days, dignity, I think, is in jeopardy in so many ways. So the question, how do you need to be more fierce in your life? The next observation, we can acknowledge that we all come from a mama, even when we all can't be a mama. We can acknowledge the pain and the suffering of mamas, and especially those who have lost children, like the two I ministered to this week, both who lost a child who was in their 20s, one an accident and one a suicide. We can acknowledge that some here have lost children to spontaneous discharge of an embryo from their wombs and felt the emptiness and the grief, the feeling of failing the child even when that feeling was unfair, and the agony for some of knowing they will never bear a child. We can acknowledge this pain. So the question here is, what pain and emptiness can you relate to? The kind that a woman has who has lost a child. And what does it make you want to do? Third observation, on Mama's Day, we can acknowledge that many here have chosen to have an abortion. Lest there be any confusion, I say this with the full support of my calling that every woman, no matter the circumstance, should have the right to make that difficult decision about ending a pregnancy. And statistically speaking, 1 in 3 women in this sanctuary today have had to make that decision and have had an abortion. And they should do so or have done so without shame. On Mama's Day, we might stand with all women so they might have the right to determine what happens to their bodies in all cases, especially during the most dangerous thing a woman's body can go through, which is pregnancy. As my role develops even further with women's health and rights issues locally and nationally, I see the spiritual and emotional dilemmas of pregnancy every day. The day I visited the Planned Parenthood clinic in Waco and shed tears with the staff as we walked past hurtful and violent signs proclaiming that God was not pro-choice and that God was against those who worked there, an amazingly stupid theological statement. The staff there told me about patients forced to carry fetuses which wouldn't survive or couldn't be cared for because of our lawmakers in Austin. This is a pain that we should all share. On Mama's Day, we might hear the call to honor all those who mother, especially those who bear the brunt of hurtful policies and who are weighed down by stigma for decisions they make in our culture. So I ask you, what decisions have you had to make that have been life-altering for you? And what shame or indignity was thrust upon you for those decisions? Fourth observation, on Mama's Day, we acknowledge that sometimes none of us know much about parenting. Those of us with teenagers can attest the feeling of failure and despair on a regular basis. Daily, might I say. And mine is just 13. We can acknowledge that we are just making it up most of the time. We acknowledge that parenting never ends. I have been told so by parents with children older than me. So the question here is, what in your life do you do that makes you feel that you are at a loss? Or what in your life makes you feel out of control? Fifth observation, on Mama's Day, let us celebrate those who mother against all odds. Trans mamas, immigrant mamas, single mamas, lesbian mamas, young mamas, incarcerated mamas, and all other who mother beyond all common expectations of society. We say that we see you. We love you into your mama-ing. So the question is here, what do you do that is against all odds? And with Mama's Day, we acknowledge today that raising children, raising our future, the future of communities of human life, is the work of us all. In our dedication of the children today, you saw that. We said we will walk with you. We will not let you be alone in your parenting. We will be spiritual guides to these children, offering them nourishing meals, not just the food we put before them, but the spiritual food. We said that we all participate in their lives, that we protect them, that we celebrate their existence, no matter how distant we are to parenting or how grumpy we are with the annoyance of little voices and movement. I know you're out there. But we must embrace them. We must know that in the end, they are ours. So the question is, how are you helping to raise a generation that is coming behind you? And I just want to pause on that question and acknowledge how hard it is sometimes to give thanks for our own mothers. For each of us has one, whether we know them or not. For some reason, Freud and Sophocles and Maya Angelou were right. Mothers are difficult. They carry a responsibility that demands our praise and drives us crazy simultaneously. They hold a place in society as creators and carriers of life and creators of therapist bills and runaways. I say that in love. And when you get down to it, giving thanks for mothers is tough, but necessary. And that is why I think Mother's Day lives on. On Facebook, I asked my Mama's Day question, which many of you answered. The question was, what would you say to your mother if you could say anything, and why? Here's what I heard. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Why were the men in your life so much more important than me? I am so grateful for everything you taught me, including how to be a mother, and I'm sorry I didn't understand how hard it is and give you credit while you were here. I miss you, and I strive every day to live life as you lived. How I long to talk to you, to hold your hand, to share my joys and concerns, to feel your unconditional love every day, to be inspired by your deep faith and be lifted by your beautiful smile. I'm sorry you have been so badly hurt. You are stronger than you'll ever know. The list goes on. I wish I showed you as much appreciation now as I know I will when you're gone. Somehow the baggage we carry seems to fade after people have passed on. This is something I must work on. I've finally made it to the point where I really know that you did the best you could, and it's okay. I love you, and you are not a burden to us. You fed my soul. And the wiseacres in our midst wrote this: I'm strange, you're weird, great partnership. And thanks for choosing Dad. And importantly, stop listening to Limbaugh. Need I say why? Lastly and simply, two people wrote, I'm okay. And relax. Let go of the guilt. Enjoy what you've created. What I hear in these statements is the reminder that our mamas are flawed, that they are wise, that they are loving, that they are difficult, and eventually they will die. I hear that these things should be said to the living or the dead, for their sake or for ours or both. And so we might today. Anne Stevenson, in her poem we read today for a daughter, says, we don't have our children have us. And when we belong to the world, we become what we are. I think it is true, our children have us. And in life given, we belong to the world. Maya Angelou reminded us our children are not our own, but belong to the world. And so it is that our mothers, our mamas, belong to us and we to the world, setting up an incredibly challenging paradigm. So I've asked you many questions today, but I want to ask you three more. Maybe the most important is, to whom do you belong? And what of the mama spirit lives in you? And beyond that, what does the world need of your spirit now? In an era when I think mothering has ceased to be put on a pedestal, but rather has been put on trial, while powerful men pass judgment over women's bodily sovereignty, I say we have a lot of work to do in the name of the mama, in the name of freedom, in the name of justice and dignity, and we have spiritual work to do in reflecting on the questions I've asked you today, which if you didn't jot down and you want a list, we will hand you one in the receiving line. We also have work to do to love the children among us even more than we already do. In the words of my colleague and activist for women, Darcy Baxter, Mama's Day tells us life is messy, mamahood is complicated, Mother's Day is too simplified and sugary sweet, power is too narrowly understood, and in the movement for reproductive and family justice, we need some time just to experience the fullness of the pain, the joy, the sorrow, and the promise of living and working for justice, compassion, and dignity. I say, so let it be, friends. Join me in celebrating mothering, all mamas, all mentoring that makes a difference in this messy, complicated, simplified world. We praise the mamas among us who hold their children in their arms, who hold their children at arm's length, who carry the pain and loss and the power of being forces for love and life for children. Let us give thanks for all these today on this Mama's Day. Let us give thanks for the lives we have been given and did nothing to deserve. Let us give thanks to all who care for us and all who have cared for us. And let us give thanks for God, which is present in and beyond the whole wide mess. Amen.